Penis Monologue, letter number 3. Dear Night Dreams, you know exactly when to come. Not when the sun is up, not when I am useful, not when I can make myself funny or brave enough to pass inspection. You wait until the house has gone quiet and my body is telling the truth. That is when you bring them back to me. The surgeon, the wound clinic, the exam chairs, the paper sheets, the gloved hands, the careful faces. You bring back the rooms where I stopped being theoretical. You bring back the first surgeon most often, not the chart version of him, not the clean signature at the bottom of the operative note, not the calm language that makes the thing sound settled because someone typed it into a record. You bring back the man standing over me. I wonder what the surgeon thought when he stood over me, knowing the partial penectomy margin was not clean, knowing I had said quality of life mattered, and deciding that meant he should close the wound and send me home with cancer still waiting inside me. I've replayed that sentence in the dark more times than I can count. I said quality of life mattered. I did not mean quality instead of life. I meant, please remember I am attached to this cancer. I meant, do not make me less whole unless you must. I meant, save what can be saved, but not at the expense of saving me. I did not know I needed to say it that plainly. I did not know those words could be misunderstood so completely. Quality of life. Such a gentle phrase. Such a polished little instrument. It sounds humane. It sounds careful. It sounds like a doctor leaning close and remembering the patient has a life beyond the wound. But language can betray a man when the room is full of knives. I said quality of life mattered. And maybe he heard preservation. Maybe he heard mercy. Maybe he heard leave me something. But I did not mean leave me cancer. I did not mean sew me closed with the enemy still inside. I did not mean let me spend the next 2 weeks believing I could heal while being cancer-free, only to be brought back and made to surrender the rest of me. Night dreams. You are cruel in the way only accuracy can be cruel. You do not invent much. You arrange. You take the sentence, the scar, the second surgery, the missing margin, the word quality, the word life, and you lay them beside me in bed like evidence of my strife. Then you ask me to sleep. I cannot. So I turn toward the ceiling and wonder what doctors carry home. Do they carry us at all? Or do they place us gently into the chart and shut the door? I do not ask this because I want accountability. Trying to get accountability from a self-protecting institution is a job for Sisyphus. I ask because I have had to carry all of it. I carried the operation. I carried the second operation. I carried the word cancer after someone had already closed me. I carried the staph-infected wound. I carried the smell of infection, the blood, the gauze, the terrible education of my own body coming undone. And then came the wound clinic. You bring that room back too. The female wound doctor, the female staff, the exam chair with its thin paper covering, the kind voices trained to remain even, the air changing when everyone saw what had happened, a double penile amputation. The staph infection from the surgery had melted away my sutures and let the wound open. It did not open politely. It did not behave like a line in a textbook. It grew. It bled. It hurt. It became a place I had to learn, inch by inch, because the wound belonged to me long after everyone else went home. I got very good at my own wound care, using silver strips and clinical liquids and gauze, lots of it. There are words for it, of course. There are always words. Wound bed, drainage, dehiscence, infection, healing by secondary intention. Clean words, cotton-gloved words. Words that can stand in a hallway without frightening anyone. But I was not a hallway. I was a man sitting naked on an exam chair with a grotesque wound where my penis used to be, trying to stay human while strangers studied the evidence. I wonder what they thought. Not what they documented. I know what is in my chart. I know the tidy grammar of medicine. I know how suffering gets translated until it can fit in a note. I mean what they thought. When the dressing came off, when the wound was there, when the room had to become very professional very quickly, did one of them feel sorrow and hide it well? Did one of them feel shock and have to suppress it? Did one of them drive home quieter than usual? Did one of them wash her hands and think, God, that poor man? Did one of them make dinner afterward and suddenly find herself staring at the knife too long? Or did they set me down the way medical people must set patients down? Because if they carried every wound home, their own houses would become hospitals. I do not know. That is why you come, night dreams. You are not satisfied with the body being cut. You want the mind to keep asking who saw it, who understood it, who looked away, who remembered. You ask me what it meant to be naked in front of so many people after those surgeries. I stopped counting the phrase. You know the one. The phrase I almost didn't what for when someone entered the exam rooms. Do you mind if I take a look? It was a masterclass, how to go from very private to being in a tiny room with 2 doctors, my girlfriend, and 12 medical students. Standing room only, and I found out I was Exhibit A with a speaking role. That may be part of what makes the memory so complicated. They were professional. They were careful. They were doing their jobs. Most were kind. Not the surgeon. He was brutal more than once. He is a cutter when it's just his tiny team and me on the cutting table. Dignity is not always preserved by kindness. I wanted them all to see the wound and the infection and the post-op scars and still see me. Not just the surgical complications, not just the infection, not just the drains for blood and pee, not just my body that had become difficult to look at with all the divots. Me. The man who had once walked into rooms without planning where to put his pain. Me, who had not expected my body to become public pelvic property under fluorescent lights. Me, along with my girlfriend, learning to pack, clean, cover, and manage the bloody geography of my own undoing. I had to become my own wound expert. I had to learn the rituals. Wash, look, breathe, dress, tape, clean the blood, measure gauze to help my gross cause. There are mornings when courage does not look like a flag or a speech or a bell ringing at the end of treatment. Sometimes courage is changing the dressing again. Sometimes courage is lowering your pants in yet another exam room. Sometimes courage is asking the question you are afraid will make everyone uncomfortable. Sometimes courage is taking only 2 seconds after someone asks, "What kind of cancer did you have?" And you take a deep breath and say the penile carcinoma kind. What did those people think when they got a wrecking ball answer when they were expecting lung cancer? Night dreams. You bring all of this back, Because the daytime is too polite, too busy with appointments. Daytime lets people say things like complication and recovery and next steps. Daytime likes clean shoes and appointment reminders. Daytime believes if the wound is covered, perhaps the story is over. But you know better. You know the story kept bleeding long after the room emptied. You know the body remembers what the chart reduces. You know that some wounds do not simply heal. They become bad weather. They move into the bones. They change the light in the house. And still, I'm trying to be fair. That is the strange thing. Even in the dark, even after everything, some part of me tries to be fair to the people who hurt me, failed me, made me wait months instead of treating me while the cancer spread. Maybe the surgeon thought he was honoring what I asked for. Maybe the wound doctor and her staff went home carrying more tenderness than I ever saw. Maybe their calm was not indifference. Maybe it was discipline. Maybe that is what medicine teaches people. How to stand near another person's catastrophe without adding your own expression to it. But I need someone to understand that this patient has a face. Patients see the hesitation. Patients feel the silence. Patients know when the air changes. And at night, the patience replays it all. Dear night dreams, I know you are not here to comfort me. You are here to make sure nothing gets buried too cleanly. You are here to keep the record in a language the chart cannot use. So let the record show this. I wanted to live. I wanted to remain myself. I wanted the surgeon to remember both things at the same time. I was not asking for vanity. I was asking for judgment. I was asking for care with a full understanding of the stakes. I was asking them to hear the whole sentence coming from a whole person. Quality of life mattered. Life mattered too. And when those two stood in conflict, I wish someone had looked harder at the word life. Because I am still here. Not because it was easy. Not because it was clean. Not because the wound behaved or the dreams were kind. I am still here because I learned how to live inside the aftermath. I learned how to look at what happened to me without letting it own every compartment in my vessel. I learned that I can be cut, opened, infected, exposed, frightened, and furious, and still have enough soul left to write a letter. So come if you must, night dreams. Bring the surgeon. Bring the wound clinic. Bring the exam chair and the paper sheet. Bring the gloved hands and the careful faces. But understand this. I am no longer only the man lying awake beneath your questions. I am the witness now. And I am writing it down with clarity and sharing it, not for charity, rather for my brothers coming after me. That's how I define my masculinity and my strength through compassion. Ty.